welcome to Easter Sunday worship with the First Parish in Lincoln. My name is Jenny Rankin and I'm the interim minister. It's so good to see you here. Some with festive bonnets will get a chance to have a little Easter parade a little later after our announcements. But whoever you are and wherever you find yourselves on life's journey this morning, we are so glad that you've joined us. We invite you, as always, to put your prayers into the chat box at the bottom of the screen, and we'll read them later during our prayer time. I hope that you'll be able to stay. Right after the sermon today, we're going to have a wonderful slideshow that we're calling the Resilience Slideshow, and it's photographs that you have sent in and that Sarah Kay has put together of this community, kind of a snapshot of this community during the past year. As we've made our way through COVID. So the Resilience Slideshow will be right after the sermon and before the closing words. And I think our first announcement will be Sarah Kay.
Yes, good morning, First Parish. Welcome to our Easter Sunday service. We have an amazing service for you this morning, and there's a lot of different faces. And so if you'd like to know who all is participating in this morning's service, you can download the order of worship from our website. You just go to fplincoln.org, and right in the middle there, you'll see Join Zoom Service, and you will see Download Order of Worship. So you can do that during the service or after the service if you'd like to know who all was involved. And as has happened in the past, there are a lot of different churches and organizations using Zoom this morning. And sometimes when that happens, there are some Zoom glitches. So we just wanted to let you know if something happens and Zoom crashes, we will be sending you an email with a rescheduled date for this service because it's a wonderful service and we are looking forward to sharing it with you. So keep an eye out in the event that that happens. But we will press on in faith that we will be able to continue on this morning together. So again, thank you for being here and happy Easter. And I will hand it on over now to Chris.
This is Chris Andresiak for the transition team. All of us have been working really hard over the last couple of years to help prepare the congregation for the transition that will happen when we have a new settled minister planned for the fall of 2022. Last Sunday, we had a presentation after the service in which the transition team shared not only the work that the congregation has done on the values, mission, and vision for First Parish, but also the research that the Strategic Planning Project has done over the last several months. This research will form the basis for some important conversations that we will have over the coming months and even the coming year as we go through the ministerial search process. We had the live presentation last Sunday after the service. We did another one this past Thursday. And so many people have participated at this point that we've decided not to do a third live showing, which was scheduled for this coming Tuesday, but rather to refer people to the First Parish website where there is a recording of the presentation. I will put a link in the chat box here in a moment, but you can also find it in the news section of the website. For those of you that haven't seen the presentation yet, I do urge you to go there and view it. It contains important information that we should all understand as we go into some of those important discussions over the next several months. And with that, I will turn it over to Ralph Smith for the Outreach Committee.
Good morning. At First Parish, we have 3 special offerings per year. This Easter, the Outreach Committee has chosen Healthcare Without Walls. Boston-based, they provide free healthcare for women and children, most of whom are homeless. They are largely staffed by volunteer medical personnel who are guided by a duty and their oath to help those most powerless and in need. As we at First Parish are guided to affirm each person's dignity and unite in the service of all. Through this offering, we unite in support of their work. Thank you and a happy Easter.
Okay, thank you, Ralph. And now let us greet one another with a wave and a look at all those fantastic bonnets that I see. I have to scroll through and look at everyone. Good morning. Good morning. Wow. It's great to see you all. Look at those festive attire. All right, let us deepen into worship now with our opening words.
Out of the earth rises light, rises life, rises spring. May we join with the miracle that is springtime and enter into life with lightness and joy. Out of the Spirit rises faith, rises hope, rises love. May we join with the miracle that is Easter time and enter into life with hope and love. Let us resurrect with spring. Let us resurrect with the Spirit and enter into renewed life as we gather into our time of worship together this Easter morning. And now would you join me in singing our opening hymn? And now would you join me in a spirit of prayer? Holy mystery, your presence is a wonder. Rolling open the tombs within and around us, you declare life where we thought there was only death. May your spirit move among us, awakening us to the possibilities that persist, possibilities for joy, for new life, and for the mending of the world. Amen. Okay. Please join us in saying our covenant.
In the love of truth and in the spirit of Jesus, we unite for the worship of God and the service of all.
Please join us as we share this responsive reading. In the tomb of the soul, we carry secret yearnings, pains, frustrations, loneliness, fears, regrets, worries.
In the tomb of the soul, we take refuge from the world and its heaviness.
In the tomb of the world, we wrap ourselves in the security of darkness.
Sometimes this is a comfort. Sometimes it is an escape.
Sometimes it prepares us for experience. Sometimes it insulates us from life.
Sometimes this tomb life gives us time to feel the pain of the world and reach out to heal others. Sometimes it numbs us and locks us up with our own concerns.
In this season, where light and dark balance the day, we seek balance for ourselves.
Grateful for the darkness that has nourished us, we push away the stone and invite the light to awaken us to the possibilities within us and among us. Possibilities for new life in ourselves and in our world.
Good morning, First Parish in Lincoln. I am Margaret Griffith, the Director of Religious Education, and I am so delighted to see so many families here with us this morning, and I thank everyone of the youth who have come to help us with this service this morning. Because Easter to me is more than a bunny or a basket. That stuff is great, and I love it, and it's such a wonderful tradition. But there's more to it. And I have a couple of things to share this morning. The first, Jenny shared this poem with me and it's beautiful. And I'd like to read it for you. It's called Easter Exultant, a poem by James Broden. Shake out your qualms, shake up your dreams. Deepen your roots and extend your branches. Trust deep water and head for the open, even if your vision shipwrecks you. Quit your addiction to sneer and complain. Keep a lookout. Dance on a brink. Run with your wildfire. You are closer to glory, leaping an abyss, than upholstering a rut. Not dawdling, not doubting, intrepid all the way, walk toward clarity. At every crossroad, be prepared to bump into wonder. Only love prevails. En route to disaster, insist on canticles. Lift your ineffable out of the mundane. Nothing perishes, nothing survives, everything transforms. Honeymoon with big joy. I love that poem and the feeling that it creates. And I'd like to share a video with you. It's a song and it's visual. So pictures and music are sometimes worth 1,000 words, or in this case, really illustrate what I just read.
Little darling, it's been a long, cold, lonely winter. Little darling, it seems like years since it's been here. Here comes the sun. Here comes the sun, and I say, it's alright. It's alright. Little darling, the smiles returning to the faces. Little darling, It seems like years since it's been here. Here comes the sun. Here comes the sun, and I say, it's alright, it's alright. Sun, sun, sun. Sun, sun, sun. Sun, sun, sun. Here it comes. Sun, sun, sun. Sun, sun, sun. Sun, sun, sun. Here it comes. Little darling, I feel that ice is slowly melting. Little darling, it feels like years since it's been clear. Here comes the sun. Here comes the sun, and I say, it's alright, it's alright. Here comes the sun. Here comes the sun, and I say, it's alright, it's alright. Sun, sun, sun. Sun, sun, sun. Sun, sun, sun. Here it comes. Sun, sun, sun. Sun, sun, sun. Sun, sun, sun. Here it comes.
And this morning we spell sun, S-U-N, and we spell sun, S-O-N. Here comes the sun. And I say, it's all right.
This morning's Bible reading is from Mark chapter 16, verses 1 through 8. When the Sabbath was over, Mary Magdalene, Mary, the mother of James and Salome, bought spices so that they might go to anoint Jesus' body. Very early on the first day of the week, just after sunrise, they were on their way to the tomb, and they asked each other, "Who will roll the stone away from the entrance of the tomb?" But when they looked up, they saw that the stone, which was very large, had been rolled away. As they entered the tomb, they saw a young man dressed in a white robe sitting on the right side, and they were alarmed.
"Don't be alarmed," he said. "You are looking for Jesus the Nazarene, who was crucified. He has risen. He is not here. See the place where they laid him. But go, tell his disciples and Peter, he is going ahead of you into Galilee. There you will see him, just as he told you." Trembling and bewildered, the women went out and fled from the tomb. They said nothing to anyone because they were afraid.
We are sharing testimonials as part of the stewardship campaign that is underway. Stewardship is an opportunity for us all to reflect on the many roles that FPL plays in our lives, and pledging demonstrates your commitment to the community and its future. The campaign is off to a great start. All of our elected leadership team, the parish committee, deacons, officers, and nominating committee have pledged. So why do I support the church? Why do we all make a financial commitment to this place? For me, especially during the last few months, it is because the church has a remarkable ability to bring me back into the present. When you think about it, we spend most of our lives outside the present moment. We worry about the future. How will I get where I want to go? Will everyone I love be okay? And then conversely, we lament the past. How could that have happened? How could this person have done this to me? In the meantime, we forget to stop, look around, and truly value the present. The church, and for me especially Sunday services, forces us to take a breath. We sit and remember that the present is the united energy of the past and future. We cherish the living earth, not the earth as it was or will be, but as it is now, alive, manifesting, and sacred. The Chinese poet Wu Men wrote, "One instant is eternity. Eternity is the now. When you see through this one instant, you see through the one who sees. Eternity is the now. It has to be because the now can't exist without the past and the future." As a church that has been in transition, we need to think about this often. Our past richly informs who we are today. And if we embrace this, we are certain to build a remarkable future. Each time we gather together, I feel like we step into the current moment. We focus. The scientist Nikola Tesla wrote, "Inside the earth, there are energies of joy, peace, and love that are expressed, for example, through a flower that grows from the earth, food that comes out of it, and everything that makes it the home of man. These are the energies we find when we see through the one who sees."
We come now to the time in our service that we set aside for silent and spoken prayers. After our prayer hymn, we will have a moment of silence followed by the reading of prayers you have sent in. There is still time to use the chat box feature to send in any prayers you have today. So sit with a straight spine, mind clear, focus on your breath.
O
I will now read prayers from the chat box. Blessings from Lulu and Peep to children and grandchildren. We are full of joy to have so much love in our life. Thank you. A blessing on all those who are working today. A prayer for all those who are away from their families. May God and the Easter Bunny give you all you deserve today. Nice hats. Gratitude for the life of Reverend Elizabeth Strong, the author of this morning's opening words. May eternal light shine upon her and her memory be a blessing for generations. A prayer for Mother Earth, her people, and all her species. May we find health and community together, all of us, as the days lengthen, birds sing, and flowers return. There's more. For healing for Joseph, for all living with COVID, and for those receiving medical treatment. Praying that my sister Andrea will have a safe cross-country journey to meet her first grandchild. Pray for healing for Sabrina. I am grateful for the tiny purple flowers poking up from the still chilly earth. A prayer for my sister recovering from her second broken hip in 3 months. I pray for all of us who cannot be with our loved ones on this Easter morning. A prayer for my sister Jackie's cancer treatment to be successful. Please pray for the health of the children in Tanzania. Thanksgiving for daffodils and for Scythia, trumpeting spring. Thank you all. Let's see. So now I have a prayer for you. Okay. So my name is Melinda Bruno Smith, and I am your deacon for the month of April. As a young girl growing up in Brooklyn, I looked to nature as a teacher, trying to find her in between the cracks of concrete and towers covering the sky. Nature is hard to find in the big city, especially in 1970s New York City. Prospect Park was wild and unsafe, a drug haven and dumping ground, not yet developed. Brownstones went for $30,000 then. The Hudson River was a sewer before our Pete Seeger clan took on the Hudson River revival. We gave nature a voice and fed a lot of people in the process. I used to sit on the brick patio in our backyard, staring at architecture, wondering about the lives and stories that existed behind the small windows and closed screen doors. The natural world I grew up in consisted of social structures, architecture, and commerce. A complex system, organic only on the level of human nature. Central Park was my green refuge, my Lincoln on steroids. In my backyard, I used to admire Mrs. Gerasti's fig and tomato garden, old school, cultivated to perfection, a living museum. I noticed how weeds would gradually break through the concrete with a will and determination, a life force so strong that it could crack through the densest materials used to suppress it. This organic, intuitive need to breathe and reach for the sun triggered my imagination. I began to dig. I became a gardener to free the weeds from oppression, to give them room to grow and express themselves authentically. These weeds taught me about home and community, about life and death, about the seasons and the cycles of life. I learned that if a plant lives in a nourishing environment with the proper support, it will become strong and produce and reproduce to its full potential. I learned that in a healthy garden, there is a balance between the strength and will of the individual plant and its relationship to the plants that surround it. Plants that share the same soil, the same environment, can support each other, nurture each other, or they can compete for survival. If they are companion plants, their coexistence is peaceful, natural, and together they yield beauty, vibrancy, and enough food to feed the rest of nature. Today, I acknowledge the daffodils, the tulips, the hyacinths that dance and sing together, celebrating their new cycle of life, their spring. Today, I pray that we as a community can live together as companion plants do, celebrating our renewal, our spring, with enough love and energy to feed the rest of human nature. And now we have a unison prayer to say together, the prayer of St. Francis. Lord, make us an instrument of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where there is injury, pardon. Where there is doubt, faith. Where there is despair, hope. Where there is darkness, light. Where there is sadness, joy. Grant that I may not so much seek to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love. For it is in giving that we receive. It is in pardoning that we are pardoned. And it is in dying that we are born to eternal life.
Oops. Our second reading this morning is an excerpt from a poem by Alice Spencer. And she was born in 1882, the daughter of former slaves. She was part of the Harlem Renaissance, a poet there with Langston Hughes and others. And she was the first Black woman to have a poem included in the prestigious Norton Anthology of Poetry. This is called For Jim, Easter Eve. If ever a garden was Gethsemane, with old tombs set high against the crumpled olive tree and lichen, this my garden has been to me. For such as I, none other is so sweet. Lacking old tombs, here stands my grief, and certainly its ancient tree. Peace is here, and in every season a quiet beauty, the sky falling about me, evenly to the compass. Beauty of an old, old tree, last comfort in Gethsemane. I called my sermon today, Easter Ready or Not. And to be honest, there were some weeks in March when I wondered if I or any of us could really get ready for this day. Easter is about gladness and hope, spring and flowers, isn't it? Is it heretical for a minister to admit that my spirit seemed to be lingering a little longer in Good Friday? In a Good Friday kind of place than I might have liked. I remembered words that the late Reverend Charles Foreman said about Advent years ago. What if there's no getting ready, he wrote in a church newsletter that I clipped out. What if the worries and cares of our lives make it seem impossible to get ready this year? Or we might add the darkness and suffering of a world with 2.3 or more million COVID deaths and a pandemic of racism in our country. And then I remembered the old game of hide and seek and how I'd hide under the holly bush in the yard and listen and wait as the person counted 98, 99, 100, ready or not, here I come. Maybe that's what Easter is saying to me this year. Ready or not, here I come. Ready or not, here I am, unbidden amidst you. It isn't easy for me to admit when I'm not feeling as bright and shiny as I think the world wants me to be. Maybe it isn't easy for you either. But I've learned over time the cost of pretending to be sunny when I'm not, the cost of pushing away what Carl Jung might call the shadow parts of life, of myself. So I was relieved last week when I heard journalist Krista Tippett speak. There's a light at the end of the tunnel, she said, more vaccines, spring. So why do I feel so exhausted? Short fuse, irritability, memory lapses, fractured productivity. It's all my friends and I can talk about. And so she interviewed a doctor from UMass Medical Center, Dr. Christine Runyon, to find out. And Dr. Runyon talked about what's been going on inside our neural system this year. How when the threat of a new virus in the world hit, our nervous system went on alert. That old fight or flight response triggered, and it's sort of been toggling on and off ever since. Yes, the last year has taken a toll, hasn't it? Not one, but two pandemics, really, as the Reverend Mary Margaret Earl said a few Sundays ago. COVID, and also a national reckoning with the pandemic of racism, a trauma that's been re-triggered this week with the trial in Minneapolis. All that might help explain if we're a little weary, a little jangled, not quite sure we can get ourselves in an Easter frame of mind. And yet, outside the sun splashes down buttermilk yellow through the clear, cold air of early spring. Suddenly, without warning, the grass is almost impossibly green. The world has a kind of bare, fresh wash look about it, a fragile beauty that could almost break my heart wide open. Ready or not, here I am, says Easter. But maybe for some of the things I've named, for this year, Mark's gospel is the perfect story for us to read, because this is the one that ends so abruptly, that leaves us hanging, ends with the women running, afraid and silent. It's an unfinished story, no neat, tidy bow on this one. They said nothing to anyone. In Mark, there is no resurrection appearance like the ones that are scattered through Matthew, Luke, and John. Scenes that show the risen Christ, like Jesus eating breakfast of broiled fish on the beach, or walking on a road with his friends and then sitting down to supper, or appearing to Mary Magdalene in a garden, or showing the Thomas who doubts his wounds. Not in the Gospel of Mark. The women come to the grave, they go, and we're left in the end with a kind of emptiness. And yet, the accounts of Easter in the Bible are all different, but at least in one thing, they're the same. Easter morning begins with women. Women, of course, are often absent from the Bible, left out of the story, although we know they were there, right alongside Jesus, eating and traveling and teaching and healing, preaching even. They were part of an embryonic movement that was challenging the powers of the day and daring to suggest that a new kind of world was possible. Women are often left out, or if they are included, they're certainly not named. We've learned so much in recent decades about women in that early community around Jesus, through scholars like Elizabeth Schussler Fiorenza and others who help us pick back through the biblical text, look for clues and reconstruct what has been obscured about women's leadership in the early church. But in Mark, they are there and they are named: Mary Magdalene, Mary, the mother of James, and Salome. By the time Jesus was crucified, of course, all the other disciples had gone. They'd fallen asleep in the Garden of Gethsemane. They'd drifted into the crowd when Jesus was arrested. And during the night of his trial, they denied him 3 times until the cock crowed at daybreak. It's almost as if in the last days of his life had been sort of a great unraveling, a dissolution of this little hopeful band of sisters and brothers around him, dissolving, literally coming apart, just like salt does, dissolving like salt does when it's put into water. And yet, the women were there at the cross, and they're here on Easter. This little tiny remnant remains. A seed, perhaps, of what is to come. Biblical scholar Elaine Pagels says she likes Mark's Easter story the best. I remember listening to her a few years ago in a hot, crowded classroom in Princeton, New Jersey. I like the short ending in Mark, she said. It just stops. And then the other gospel writers came along and said, oh, we can't have that. And they made up all sorts of endings. The actual words in Greek, Pagels said, the last sentence in Mark, quote, they said nothing because ... close quote. It just trails off, Professor Pagels said. Mark was a rough, uneven writer of Greek, one scholar contests, but even for him, this is a little strange. I like it, she went on to say, because it's the world we live in. People are tortured and killed and no magic happens, no angel intervenes. That's what we see and experience in our own lives. Elaine Pagels knows this in her bones. Her first child, a son, died of a rare disease when he was 6. And 15 months later, her beloved husband of 20 years died in a freak climbing accident. No magic happens, she said, and yet. Mark thinks that something else happened, that there's a mystery here. This can't be all, Mark is saying with his ending. There's a mystery behind what looks like disaster, and it will transform everything. Mark, she continued, spoke to the hope that even in terrible suffering and pain, ... some mystery underlies it and something else happens. In Mark's gospel, the women are stunned and they say nothing. Isn't this exactly what some of us want to do when life throws us for a loop? When our teenage son or daughter becomes depressed, our transgender grandchild seems withdrawn, our adult child announces they're leaving a job, a relationship, a city, a place we thought they were safe and settled and, God forbid, happy. A friend leaves her marriage or her marriage leaves her. A work friend has illness in the family. A relative gets a cancer diagnosis. A young adult flounders, beset with, you can fill in the blank, COVID, identity, addiction, direction, depression, living in America right now. When life throws us for a loop, sometimes we're a little shell-shocked at first, like those women. Maybe we need to draw into ourselves, get a little quiet. Our minds circle and spin, and it's hard to even know what we think, never mind find words to speak out loud. What does it mean to parent in a pandemic? What does it mean to teach in a pandemic? What does it mean to be a friend or care for elders we can't visit? What does it mean to preach when you can't see people's faces, can't feel the energy in a room? That particular constellation of people in that one location for that 1 hour, that sanctuary splashed with sunlight, can't feel that holiness of community gathered around you, that room with people who bring their hearts and all that is in them, their hearts that love and beat and break and love again. What does it mean? The Gospel of Mark, in some ways, is perfect for this Easter, ending as it does. It gives us a lot of empty space for our minds to imagine, ramble and roam around. And so I'm thinking, you know, those women talked to each other on the way to the grave as they were walking there. They asked each other who would roll away the stone. They worried. with one another. And I'm going to imagine maybe, just maybe, that when the dust settled and they got out of that place where they had had such a shock, maybe walking home, they started to speak to each other again. This is the part of the story that's outside of the screen that we can't see. But I'm going to imagine that they were talking again to each other, the way I've talked with my friends this year, making loop after loop around the block, sharing a success or a joy, talking through a dilemma, a confusion, a sadness. The women at the end of the story are mute. How many times have we heard that word this year? You are muted, we say to each other, or mute yourself, we say when we hear the cat in the background or the kids or the phone ringing. The women are mute, but if we imagine what they might say if the mute button were off, I'm going to imagine them speaking, listening, as feminist theologian Nell Morton said, listening one another into speech. Will they speak of going to Galilee as the young man told them? Will they remember that's where Jesus said he would see them again? I don't know what they'd say. I don't know. This story ends in fear and in silence, and yet. I can see what happened next, how this remnant, this seed, these 3 women became the beginning of a community that did rebuild itself. However, it had scattered, came together again, and became the early Christian church, and then became a community of women and men that has lasted even unto this present day. Women and men not so much interested in complicated beliefs about Jesus, dogmas, creeds about him, but more interested really in figuring out how to find a way to follow him. Today, I'm thinking it's the anniversary of Martin Luther King's death, April 4th, and of how he always spoke of what he called the beloved community. I wasn't sure I really could get ready this year, but I think Easter's sort of been creeping up on me, inviting me in a slow, gentle way. It doesn't have to happen all at once, I realize. I don't have to go from pandemic to exuberance in just a day. I can take my time, figure out what I want to hold on to and what I want to let go of. I can trust what the Jesuit priest and scientist Teilhard de Chardin called the slow work of God. Ready or not, Easter comes. Maybe we're ready and eager and willing, and God bless you if you are. And maybe we're not quite sure we're ready, and that's okay too. Outside, the sun splashes down buttermilk yellow. The grass is green. Ready or not, here I come, says Easter. I am here, unbidden, amidst you all. Happy Easter. So now we have a little Easter gift for you, this slideshow that I mentioned earlier. It's a snapshot of our community in this past year. So sit back and enjoy what Sarah Kay has put together for us to watch.
The sun will rise, the sun will rise, bringing life to the earth as it springs from the ground. The sun will rise, the sun will rise. Won't you dry all your tears, lay your burden down? Won't you dry all your tears, lay your burden down? Lay your burden down.
Our closing words are from St. Augustine of Hippo. All shall be amen and alleluia. We shall rest and we shall see. We shall see and we shall know. We shall know and we shall love. We shall love and we shall praise. Behold our end, which is no end. And would you join me in singing our closing hymn, Christ the Lord is risen today.
Please join me now in saying our call to ministry. We go forth from the worship of God to be faithful to the vision of Jesus, to affirm each person's dignity, and to cherish the living earth.
And now an Easter blessing for each one of you. May you be given the hope that you need for your life. May the strength and love of this community travel with you wherever you go. And may God bless you and keep you. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Amen.